Hey yo YouTube, in my last session we left off where we just killed the hags and Johan said something about one of the titans wanting was hunting hags, so we put them in a bag of holding. Uh, at the start of this session, I kind of bring up again that I'm doing that. I guess this time Nina catches it and she asks, why is he doing that or what's his plan with the hags. Again, he repeats that in the Bandit Titans, one of the members is uh, eventually throughout the campaign, it kind of gets more cleared out, or throughout the session, that that one of the members of the Titans is looking for a witch, and and he could send this to her, and the hobgoblin will be able to speak to him, speak to the dead bodies. Eventually, I have Rawlright go over and do detect magic on their cauldron. Which before that, we saw like human body parts and stuff in it. He detects something, but he can't really figure it out. So like he tells Nina, and she goes and does it, or does something similar, and pretty much she discovers that it looks like that they were in the middle of some ritual that we interrupted, or some spell. And Onyxgar ends up sending his vulture one way, and Basker sends, or Johan sends Basker a different way. Uh, Both go out about a mile. When they come back, like Onyxgar already used his talk to animal spell, so he can't. I'm struggling to communicate with them. So Apollo ends up approaching, and him being a 10th level ranger, for the first time he uses the same spell, speak to animals, and he asks the vulture's name, which is something I wish I would have got to before Apollo asked it, but that's my own fault, I guess. Uh, but the vulture, or Scourge, ends up telling him that it could feel a lot of pocket dimensions in this area. And when Basker comes back, he tells him that they smell wargs in that direction. And we do go over what the two hags said that the band of Titans killed in one of Johan's last sessions with them. Uh, but pretty much they say that there's other hags in a place that gets described almost exactly like where we're at, and that they're going to perform some kind of ritual in between two holy holidays. And apparently we're in a place called Kelashavakia. I'm probably messing that up. Uh, but we travel or we follow the track of the works for a while, and and the DM ends up setting up a map. He ends up having us roll spot checks. Only Onyx Scar and Rawright see it, but we end up seeing like there's some kind of witch or hag that's watching us from afar. Uh, and like the pick, it doesn't look like one of the old wrinkly ones. Like it looks like a pretty lady. And like we move around on the map a little bit, and like a few more people end up seeing it, but Nina, I guess the one skill that Nina's players don't seem to have is spot, because almost none of them get it. Uh, and then eventually, like Nina approaches Onyx and says, "Hey, Onyx, just run up there and yell that we're not there to harm them. We're peaceful, stuff like that." And Onyx ends up saying, "By all means." And I move my character on the map, and Nina starts doing the Onyx, you're the leader, and this and that, and you got a louder voice than me, and and I start saying, like I say, you're a female with a high charisma. And the DM's like, how do you know each other's character sheets? But eventually I end up saying, like, if you being a female magic user, they will relate more to you. And we go back and forth for a little bit, but eventually she ends up pulling out, doing some like celestial steed or something like that, and climbs upon it and like flies up there. Out of like I want to say it moves almost immediately, and then two more appear, or two more end up surrounding us. So like there's like a triangle around us, and again only not all of us, because like also because of the distance and also because it's snowing. Uh, Most of us are losing our spot checks. Like at one point, not one of us sees all three of them. And this is where the DM kind of starts clearing up some stuff with the Titan member storyline, Eridina, the gunslinger that's hunting the hag. Because again, like I said, it's been like 7 months. We really don't remember. I kind of think he might ends up telling me stuff I shouldn't have known, because Johan's responsible for the information coming out, because he ends up bringing it up. I want to say in gameplay, it isn't just player, but it might have just been me saying out loud that that since I came in later, like I don't know the full story, and it gets kind of said to him that, like, truth be told, you kind of do know the whole story. Like, we don't know much more than you. And then later on, I know that Seville finally fully asked, what is the story of the hag? So at some point, I guess after leaving her world, she ended up teaming up with a quartet, is where she learned how to become a gunslinger. Um, they end up meeting some kind of a demon and I think a speaking ring. My notes might be wrong on that. But I guess they end up fighting it, or they fight one, and it ends up giving them a prophecy. Somewhere in the multiverse, there is a witch, and if the witch isn't found, it might destroy the multiverse. Um, and apparently, the group split. The cartel split up to each go and find the witch on their own. So when we get back to Nina talking to the hags or the witches or whatever they are, uh, they tell us that pretty much they were watching us because they saw we were about to walk into the vortex that leads to the hag dimension. Uh, Apparently Baba Yaga's dimension, and they tell us that Baba Yaga is she used to be a regular hag, but she grew powerful enough that she was able to leave her dimension and enter like a multiverse. Eventually entering different worlds, she ended up making like her own dimension or her own world, which is supposed to be a mixture of different worlds. Like I know Nina ends up like introducing all of us like while she's up there in the sky. Um, uh, she ends up like saying almost everything. Like she talks about the doors, she talks about the waves. They do end up saying something about knowing where another unfound door is and how it's protected or under someone's territory. She said they say it's in the land of the unfound chieftain. Uh, we start asking more about the hag dimension, and they tell us that she created it to resemble her dimension, her home dimension, and that it has a mixture of monsters: wolves, wargs, winter wolves, giants, ogres, and apparently she lives in a dancing hut, and she's almost always in it. Apparently, though, right now she's not in this dimension. She's missing. Um, they do mention that if we go there, she might notice this dimension and end up attacking. Although they do think eventually she's gonna attack anyways. Apparently, she spends a lot of the time in a world called Goran, where she's created a kingdom that links to the Hag dimension. They do tell us that she has helped adventurers before. They also say that she has a lot of granddaughters, and recently she picked one that isn't a true witch and I guess made her queen or her heir or something. And apparently she's been restoring the land to what it used to be, and it's caused a lot of tension between the winter witches and the hags that live there. Eventually, we end up wrapping up the conversation. We pretty much tell the make the decision that well, if because we pretty much get told that the place is extremely hostile, and if we go in there, we're probably gonna die. Uh, so we make the decision that we'll camp there for the night. Maybe Nina will get a vision. Either way, we'll need the rest if we're gonna go into somewhere so hostile. And I know Johan ends up throwing some of the leftovers of his Naga hide that he made Basker's armor with. Uh, and like tells them to keep in good favor of anyone who might come through the doors around this area. And then that night, when Nina goes to sleep, she has a vision to return to the door. So the next morning, Nina tells us she had a vision, and we travel however far it was to get back to the door, uh, open it up, start gathering through the way gate. Pretty much the same stuff as usual, except for I want to say it was longer this time. Like, this time we go across 3 bridges and see like 2 islands. At one point, I know the Pauls start traveling backwards, and I think that's when, or not backwards, but back the other way, and I think that's when we see the third island. Uh, Eventually get to the door, open it up. I want to say it's like a full day's travel, uh, and when we go through, the DM sets up the map, and we're we're in a room very similar to the structure. We see like a painting, like a few paintings. One has a Wemmick, one has an orc, another one has like the priestess looking Wemmicks of the Guardians, and then on the other side there's a painting of someone who looks like Armor Ready. In front of us, we see like I want to say it's like 4 orcs wearing like football jerseys. Um, Before we do anything, Beck runs forward and holds up the same type of jersey, and she's like, "Hell Belgard, Hell Belgard, Hell Belgard." Like the orcs seem confused, and eventually they like order for their leader, and a huge group of orcs come into the room. And like amongst that group is like a smaller orc, and they run up to Beck, and apparently they notice her. Uh, Eventually, it takes me a while, but eventually I realized that Beck's in her own. She's in her own dimension, her home dimension, and like the main orc ends up looking at Onyx, and he says, "I don't know where you came from, but we've been waiting for you and hail the Wimmicks." Onyxgar introduces himself, says his typical, "I'm Onyxgar, I'm the warrior Onyxgar, Shadow from Shadow Pride and Tribe of the Lion," and they end up saying like "Hail Onyxgar, Hail Pride of the Lion," or uh, Shadow Pride and Pride of the Lion. And they tell us that they've been guarding this door, and there was a prophecy that a Wemmick will eventually show up, but they didn't know when. And they tell us back when the last star, the last Wemmick, died, um, the orcs pledge that they will take over guarding the door to make penance, because whenever the humans and dwarves stood up against the god of the night, the orcs sided with the god of the night. And they pretty much say for 150 years they've been guarding this door. Like even whenever the leader switched over to the mooks, whatever that means. I got that on my notes. I think I'm going to cut that part out. And he pretty much tells us that since then nothing has really happened. And then one day Armoretti came running through, being chased by rodent-like creatures and people with strange masks. The orcs ended up saving her. She told them that the only things that she knew was that, or she was Armoretti, and that monsters were constantly hunting her. Whenever the shaman sees her, they decide that she's someone special and they end up healing her. She eventually has a prophecy that Wemmick will be showing up soon, but she can't stay, and she ends up leaving, never to be seen again. Beck tells us that she needs to go and talk to some people she knows. Uh, she also tells us that most of our group will stand out in this world. That pretty much all the large animal people will stick out like a sore thumb. Onyx, especially being its extinct species. Um, so she ends up telling us that we're gonna have to learn what the vampire in the nothing taught her, and she reveals that pretty much it's that she's gonna teach us how to turn invisible. And I guess where we're at, or somewhere in the area, is a place called De Los Cios, and Nina notices that there's something in our world that got blown up by a volcano. So she kind of asked the orc about that, but he says like, no, as far as he knows, there's no active volcanoes around. And something about how the volcano was the sign for some holy war, or the city getting destroyed was a sign for some holy war. Uh, and I guess Lazar is the name of the leader orc, is what my notes say. And then like Johann approaches Beck and is like to make this clear, this is your world. And she's like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, you're an outsider, or the term has also been known as lost. And Nina's like, well, technically, we're the lost here, or we're the outsiders here. And Johann kind of shrugs it off and mentions that the members of the lost, very few. When I go back to it, when I think about it, Johann might not even know of very few. Far as he knows, no, none of them has ever returned home before. It's a very rare thing, and that returning home is his greatest goal. Um, and that's pretty much where we ended up wrapping it up. That's where the DM closes shop. Again, uh, we only had like two big scenes, but again, just too much role playing, and we didn't get time to get to any fights. I am excited that tomorrow night we're gonna get to play the Band of Titans. Um, but predictions for this campaign, I guess we're gonna learn to turn invisible and leave the at least leave this town in that manner. What we're gonna face outside of it, I have no idea. But you want to find out or know what happens in tomorrow's night session of the Titans? Watch my next videos and check you later.